No, YouTube views are not down. They're just not going to the people who assumed they would get them. And that's a much more uncomfortable truth than blaming the algorithm. Right now, a lot of creators are telling themselves the same story. The platform changed. It's harder now. The system is unfair or unpredictable. And on the surface, that feels right, because it removes responsibility. It gives you something external to blame. But that's not the real story. What's actually happening is simpler. YouTube has become much better at exposing the difference between content that's published and content that's actually wanted. That's the shift. And for a lot of creators, that feels like punishment. But it's not. It's a more honest feedback loop than most people want to admit. I've been building websites and working in digital marketing for over 20 years, and I've seen this pattern on every platform. In the beginning, almost any decent effort gets traction. Less competition, looser systems, lower standards. Then the platform matures, competition increases, the algorithm improves, user behavior becomes clearer, and suddenly you hear the same thing. Reach is dying, traffic is down. It used to be easier. I've heard it with Google, with Facebook, with Instagram, and now with YouTube. But when I look at the businesses and creators still growing, I don't see a dying platform. I see a more selective one. And that shift frustrates people who built their strategy around being present instead of being compelling. That's the difference. What's actually happening is much simpler. And once you see it clearly, your views start to make a lot more sense. Why it feels like views are down. Now, to be fair, I understand why people think views are down. There's more content than ever. AI makes it easier to publish, competition is higher, and attention is limited. So naturally, it becomes harder to win. When a video gets weak impressions or poor performance, the instinct is to assume something is wrong with the platform. That reaction makes sense. But it also stops the analysis too early. Because once you decide the system is the problem, you stop asking the harder question. Was this video actually strong enough, clear enough, or relevant enough to be chosen? That's the question most creators avoid. The uncomfortable reality. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. YouTube does not owe your content distribution. It doesn't owe you impressions, views, or an audience. No matter how hard you worked or how consistent you were, the platform is not there to reward effort. It's there to keep viewers watching. So if your content helps do that, it gets pushed further. If it doesn't, it slows down. That's not personal. That's the system doing exactly what it was built to do. And the frustration usually comes from expecting a merit-based system when it's actually a response-based filter. That shift changes everything, because instead of asking, why didn't YouTube help me? You start asking, why didn't people choose this? Where most creators get it wrong. This is where things start to break down. Most creators look for external reasons when a video fails. The timing, the niche, the algorithm, and sometimes those play a role. But more often the issue is simpler. They create content from their perspective, not the viewers. It sounds useful, but it doesn't create urgency, curiosity, or a reason to stay. And when that happens, the video gets ignored, because a platform cannot create demand where demand doesn't exist. Publishing content is not the same as creating relevance. And a lot of content that used to survive is now being exposed for what it really is, acceptable but not essential. Why your content gets ignored. Most content doesn't fail because it's bad. It fails because nobody needed it. There's a massive amount of content that's decent, not poorly made, not offensive, not incompetent, but it doesn't solve anything urgent. It doesn't challenge a belief. It doesn't sharpen a perspective. So it gets skipped. For a long time, creators confused existing with competing. They believed that if something was useful enough, attention would follow. That's no longer true. Today there are more options, more noise, more sameness. So if your video doesn't create that immediate feeling of, I need to hear this, people move on. And when people move on, YouTube moves on. That's why average content feels invisible. Not because the platform is against you, but because the audience has become extremely efficient at ignoring what doesn't matter. So what changed? There was a time when consistency could carry you. It covered weak positioning, average ideas, forgettable content. Now the system is tighter. A video gets tested. People either respond or they don't. They click or they don't. They watch or they leave. And once that data comes in, the platform adjusts quickly. So when creators say, my views are down, what they often mean is this. The system is no longer giving them the same grace. That's the shift. YouTube isn't rewarding presence anymore. It's demanding a stronger reason. And if that reason isn't clear immediately, the video loses momentum fast. The algorithm is not the problem. The algorithm didn't become unpredictable. It became less forgiving. When people say it's unpredictable, what they usually mean is their old assumptions no longer work. A lot of creators still think in terms of effort and consistency, but YouTube doesn't evaluate effort, it evaluates response. That can feel unfair. But hard work and audience response are not the same thing. So instead of seeing poor performance as randomness, it's more useful to see it for what it is. A weak connection, not the effort, the connection. And that's where the real analysis begins. What actually works now? What works now isn't just better content. It's alignment. Alignment between what you create and what people already care about. It feels relevant immediately, clear immediately, intentional immediately. For business owners, this matters even more because you're not trying to entertain. You're trying to build trust, authority, and attention. So the goal isn't to publish more. It's to make the right person feel very quickly, this is for me. That's not about gaming the algorithm. That's about understanding people. And platforms reward that. The hard truth. This is where some people will disagree. Most creators are not being ignored. They're being accurately evaluated. If people don't click, that's information. If they leave, that's information. But many creators interpret that as unfairness instead of feedback. And that becomes a problem. Because the moment you blame the system, you stop improving what you actually control. The idea, the angle, the clarity, the relevance. Sometimes the most uncomfortable explanation is also the most useful one. What the algorithm is really showing you, the algorithm is not killing your content. It's revealing how people actually feel about it. That's why a drop in views isn't just a distribution issue, it's a signal. Maybe the topic was weak, the framing unclear, the hook didn't land. Those are uncomfortable conclusions. But they're actionable. So instead of asking, why is YouTube harder? Ask this, what does my content communicate in the first few seconds that makes someone stay? Because if that answer is weak, then nothing else will save the video. So, no, YouTube views are not simply down. The margin for average content has collapsed. And that's actually a good thing, because it forces creators to become clearer, sharper, and more intentional instead of hiding behind volume. The ones who adapt will grow faster. The ones who don't will keep repeating the same story. It must be the algorithm, but the longer you blame the system, the longer you avoid the real work. And the real work isn't posting more, it's becoming more worth watching. That's the shift. And the creators who understand that become very hard to ignore. And if you would like more tips on running a smooth, profitable web design business, please like this video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any valuable tips. My name is Fabio Peters. Until next time, take care.